Hello everyone, welcome to Archant Towers. It's Friday afternoon, we hope you're all well. I'm Michael Bailey, I'm with Paddy Davitt, fresh back from Colney. We're always fresh when we come back from Colney, Pad.
Do you say so, Michael?
Yeah. From Norwich City's pre-match press conference, they are of course this week playing Alec Neil's Preston, as we have to refer to them constantly for the entirety of the weekend. Wasn't too much talk of Alec, I guess, this afternoon, given that it was Daniel Farke and Christoph Zimmermann we were speaking to. So, but we'll get into a little bit of that in a moment. But injury news, I guess, is always the first place to start, isn't there, Pad? And it'd be nice if we had one of these where there weren't, 2 or 3 extra names to add to the pot.
Yeah.
At the end of it, but we got it again, haven't we?
Just the 2 or 3. It feels like more. Feels like. Well,
2 or 3 new ones.
Yeah. Just trying to think now. Process it myself. Tribal, no go. Closer, no go. He's the latest one. Not recovered from the hip problem that's forced him off at half time against Forest. Husband is going to be beyond Cardiff, groin injury. Obviously, we know about Tete, we know about Jarvis. I'm trying to work through them in my own head. Thompson, Lewis. 2 are in a rather interesting bracket. Naismith and Martin. Martin isn't injured, for those asking, but he won't be involved this weekend. You can draw your own conclusions on that one. Marcel Franke made the bench midweek, and he will retain his place on the bench, with Zimmermann stepping up alongside Hanley. Naismith is an injury issue. It sounds like the ankle is continuing to trouble him. He's now stopped training, albeit he was only training on his own. He still hadn't rejoined the group training, but he's now stopped that ahead of fresh meetings with doctors to try and get to the root cause of why he's feeling so much pain in terms of his movement. And all of that pulled together equals a possible Alex Pritchard return.
Now, that which is the thing that's probably grabbed the headlines, is the thing that's, I think, led the team news, hasn't it? I think it got labelled as crazy.
It did get labelled as crazy by the man himself.
Now, and a few people came to me on Twitter saying, "Oh, he's all right. He's played a few minutes now. He's good for 10 or 15 maybe off the bench," which is kind of the point, I guess. But likewise, he's played 45 minutes of under-23 action since his operation, and he only had really the first third of pre-season training. Yeah. I mean, it does strike me as a major gamble, given that you don't want any setbacks, you don't want anything going wrong here, because he is the kind of player fully fit and firing that can make a difference.
Actually, yeah, I have overlooked a key facet of why he's now in a situation where he might be getting a look in, and that is basically Marley Watkins and Harrison Reed are slight concerns. I didn't get the sense really from Farke that neither would be involved, but if you add those two to the whole roll call we just went through at the start, then yeah, I mean, Watkins' hip issue, Reed took a bang on his foot midweek, both getting treatment this afternoon. I think they were planning to do a little bit of training, so I'd be surprised if either of those are out. But if they were to be out, on top of all the others out, then I think Pritchard would be in the matchday squad. As it stands here now, I personally think he might go and be part of the pre-match routine with the squad, just to keep him involved. Almost give him a little carrot, as Farke described it. To feel he's close to the first team again. But I think in terms of seeing Alex Pritchard in a Norwich shirt on the pitch, I think probably Cardiff at the earliest, and they need him because again, midweek, okay, you could say it was marginally better than Barnsley, but same old problems: not scoring enough goals, not looking like they're going to be able to create enough chances to score goals. And the Alex Pritchard of the 10-game spell under Alan Irvine would certainly offer you both.
Indeed. I hope that answers your question, Steve, because Steve Wells has already asked that about Pritchard. So there we go, and get your questions in. Tell us where you're watching from as well, and we'll address everything that we can. Adam Harvey asks, are you and presumably me and Paddy fit to play tomorrow? I mean,
things are not that bad.
You wouldn't want to see me play. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Paddy.
No, it's fine. No.
I wasn't very good when I could run, so I tried to think what it'd be like now. Ian Charlesworth, need that win to get back up the table, and it did come up a bit, didn't it, in terms of the fact that Norwich are now 5 games in the league without a win. That's right, isn't it?
Sure,
I think, and that additional pressure that it adds, and Farke himself said he's kind of aware of that pressure, but doesn't want it to really alter how they're going to go about things, and he's trying to protect them from that to a degree and just kind of concentrate on the process almost.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're sat in front of 25,000 fans who are well aware of it too, it's never quite that straightforward, is it?
No, I mean, yeah, that's exactly the phrases he was using. He's reiterated again in the last few days. It's almost worry about the contents, and then the result takes care of itself. You know, if you get the controllables, you know, maximised in terms of playing well, creating chances, retaining possession, defending well, then you would hope. And I think that's probably, obviously, we've already discussed ad nauseum, his best away performance of the season quote after Forest, given they still got beat and it was a fifth game without a win. But I think that's kind of where he's coming from, that if they reach a performance level that he's happy with, he feels that will be enough eventually to turn defeats, draws into wins. But as we said on the podcast midweek, every game that goes by and they don't pick up a win, there's a little bit of faith dribbles out of the Norwich fan base, who, particularly the ones at home, and again tomorrow they'll turn up in hope rather than expectation, because they've not seen too much tangible to suggest otherwise really of late, and it's hard to keep almost asking those guys to stay on side when they're not getting a lot in return.
Yeah, indeed. And again, this came up too with the atmosphere at Carrow Road, and I mean, it's probably quite interesting the fact that it was Daniel Farke and Christoph Zimmermann being the ones that we were speaking to about that, because of their background in German football until the start of this season, of course. So, you know, their insight was quite interesting in terms of the atmosphere and the cultural differences, almost between the fan bases in each country. But Daniel Farke did say that the fans want to be entertained, and I actually had a tweet, I think, this afternoon just saying, well, entertainment is winning. Is it that straightforward, do you think? If Norwich started winning at home, it would iron out some of those entertainment difficulties?
If Norwich were winning games, basically what you're describing there is that spell when they were winning games, when they went 2 months unbeaten, 10 games. I don't think there's any of those games that you could pick out and say, that was scintillating football. We were on the edge of our seat, you know, drawing parallels with, and it's quite pertinent, obviously, with Alex Neil in town this weekend. When Norwich were good last season, they were very good. You know, the Forest game, Reading. You know, when they cut loose, I'm sure if you'd have asked those fans, that was entertainment. When you couldn't, even the most eternal optimist could argue that this season you've seen anything approaching that. Obviously, there was a lot of negative elements to the Alex Neil reign last season, but certainly in terms of when they were good, they were very good going forward. So yeah, I'd agree wholeheartedly with that. For me, if I'm a fan, then I would be a lot happier if the team are winning games. Maybe not champagne football, shall we say, but at the minute they're not getting anything, are they? They're not getting results, they're not getting entertained, so you can understand the frustration.
Which brings us on to Alec Neil, because, as I said, Christoph Zimmermann couldn't really say a lot. He wasn't around when Alec was here. I mean, obviously Daniel Farke's heard a lot about Alec. He's never met him, though, as our colleague Pete Layton was quizzing him on. He'll get to speak to him for the first time on Saturday, when he'll have a quick chat, wasn't it? A quick chat rather than a wee chat. He'll be having a quick chat with him. So, the fact we have here is there's probably not that many connections really to Alec Neil's era that will be involved for Norwich. Conversely, you'll have a Alec Neil who, let's not mince about with it, you know, he'll be desperate to beat Norwich on Saturday, won't he?
Obviously. Yeah, no.
I mean, and it adds an element to the game, doesn't it? Because, you know, in terms of the crowd, I'm thinking of mostly probably the atmosphere at Carrow Road. They will be well aware of who Norwich are coming up against, and that is going to play a factor whether Daniel Farke and whoever wants it to or not.
Yeah. No, undoubtedly. And obviously Frankie McAvoy and Dean Kiley as well. So, yeah, let's be honest, human nature tells you that there probably is going to be an edge to Preston's training this week, particularly after going to Bristol City and having a very good result there, winning 2-1 the same night. City were coming up short in Nottingham. I don't think those Preston players will be any doubt that this game means a lot to their management team, and I think you will see that because he will drill it into them. I'm sure he won't want to come here, and he said some nice words in the last couple of days about it isn't a revenge mission, it isn't about grudges. He's eternally grateful to the previous regime that they took a punt on what was at the time a totally left field appointment, I think was the phrase Mr McNally used, and he won't forget that. But you know, ultimately, as he says himself, I think in the last couple of days, that's football at the highest level. You know, managers come and go, players come and go. So, yeah, of course, will he be motivated? Yes. Would he have been motivated if it wasn't Norwich? Yes. So, I think you need to caveat that he's on some sort of major revenge mission. Ultimately, before they beat Bristol City, they're on a very, very poor run. So, they're not exactly, with the greatest will in the world, a team that Norwich need to fear. You just hope that, as you're saying now, Farker and Zimmerman perhaps not fully aware, but any of the lads in the dressing room who worked under Alex Neil would be getting the message across what's coming, and then they're fully prepared. And if we want to turn this to a positive, if they were to beat Alex Neil's Preston tomorrow, that would go a long way to improving certainly the atmosphere tomorrow, and maybe bounce them into a congested and probably pivotal for the season period over the Christmas and New Year period. They need a catalyst again, because if they don't, heaven forbid it went the other way tomorrow, there'd be plenty of atmosphere then at the final whistle. Let me assure you of that, and it wouldn't do many favours when they've got Cardiff next. It would feel, as it does at the minute, that it's going to be a long season ahead.
I mean, the thing with players and managers, they come and go. Obviously, the fans will remember every part of Alec Neil's reign, and there'll be enough of them there who will be probably motivated to a degree. Maybe that will instigate an atmosphere on its own and generate something. We'll have to see, and we know that people are meeting in terms of trying to work out how to improve the atmosphere at Carrow Road. Andy Lazel, Tribal, is he fit? No, I'm afraid, is the answer, Andy. Steve Jones, how about some of the under-23 players? Adams, Abrahams, plus any others getting involved in the first team. We actually had two of the under-23s, I think it was, watching the press conference, didn't we? It's lunchtime. With Matty Gill?
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
I think they were that age group.
Okay.
Seeing how it works, I'm sure they were riveted by our entertainment. But we've had this discussion a couple of times. But you do look, worst case scenario, if all these players are out, you're physically going to have to bring some of them into the line.
You're seeing that, aren't you, with a certain youngster from Dereham, Todd Cantwell, who's been a very prominent fixture in the travelling squad now, and the odd game at Carrow Road. So, as much as we're talking about Phillips, I think you'll find the next cab off the rank will be Todd Cantwell.
Yeah, indeed. He's getting very close to his debut. Steve Wells, is it time to recall some of our loans back? I mean, I do keep thinking, Ben Godfrey would have been playing probably by this point, but it's not possible, is it, until January? Because they all have to be loan window to window.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of touched on that. There are recall positions that they can exercise in January. And for me, it's got to be, Raggett. If Raggett goes back to Lincoln, I'm not sure that's going to do Norwich any favours, and it'll probably do Lincoln plenty of favours for the second part of the season. But Zimmerman, you asked him, I thought he was very good there today, that he is making the odd rick and it's proving costly. And you have to remember, you have to continue to tell yourself, this is a guy who's playing in the fourth tier of German football last season. Massive steep learning curve. In his brightest spells, he's shown that he can adapt. But over the course of a season, it's a big ask to expect him to go again. Hanley clearly is going to be a fixture. Closey, you're never quite sure. Injuries intervened at the minute. What might happen in January in terms of his future? Get Raggett back in the building. If Raggett is the future of this football club, centrally defensive-wise, which he clearly is, because they went out and aggressively pursued him, get him back and get him in the side. Because, however the rest of this season pans out, it's almost got a sense of it's about next season again, isn't it? And starting afresh, and Sean Raggett will be part of that. So for me, personally, I think you bring him back and you keep him here and you integrate him into the side. Godfrey, slightly different scenario, I guess, because I don't think he would come in and be playing week in and week out. And is that the best development tool for him? Probably not. I think he's going to learn a lot more if he plays week in and week out in a Shrewsbury side going for promotion to the Championship. But obviously the fact that the imponderable there is Alex Tette's body, and if it holds up, then Godfrey wouldn't play. But the historical reality is Alex Tette's body will break down, and they're going to be in the scenario they're in at the minute, where they're trying to scratch around and almost apply perm Alex Tette's, what he gives you from not just one player, because there isn't a like for like in the current squad. It's, can you get a bit out of Tribal in that area? Can you get a bit out of Reed, a bit out of Rancic even? And at the minute they're not reproducing what you get from Alex Tete in that midfield.
No, indeed. You remind me of one of the correspondents who was in the press box on Tuesday night was a Lincoln fan, and he was imploring Norwich to make sure that Raggett could go back to Lincoln for the rest of the season, which I guess most Lincoln fans will be hoping for. You can see a lot of what Daniel Farke and Christoph Zimmermann had to say. It's both on the PinkUn YouTube channel now, so go check that out once we're done, obviously, because we've still got a bit to give here. But another one who came up, I mean, you mentioned obviously centre-backs wise, if Russell Martin looks like he's not involved at the moment. I asked Daniel Farke about Marcel Franke as well, and he's going to come in to the mix. I mean, Farke said that Franke was closer to the first team. I wonder if that's just because Tim's got a knock and he needs him. But for all the possible mitigation you can give towards Christoph Zimmermann, Marcel Franke did come from a bit of money. He came from a higher level, and we literally, I think, apart from a couple of minutes at Brentford in the Cup, we haven't seen him since August.
No, well, what ties Russell Martin and Marcel Franke together is the horror of Millwall, isn't it? They were the central defensive duo that day, and they were basically bullied out of it by Morrison and Gregory, is it? And it wasn't just solely down to them, but those two really haven't recovered in terms of a personal seasonal development since. Neither have been anywhere near it until, as you say, probably injuries have opened the door to Marcel Franke. They clearly thought he could come in and do a job, because they did actually go and spend money to recruit him from the second tier in Germany. But I just think increasingly I look at that now and I think Grant Hanley, Sean Raggett, let's have it. They're not going to get bullied too often, I wouldn't have thought. And obviously Raggett needs to show he can step up from a considerable level. Apparently he's managed it from National League to League Two to Championship. Let's find out.
It's interesting. It just makes you think of the cultural differences that Daniel Farke was talking about in terms of the atmosphere as well. And as a German coach, you're playing progressive, patient football where the crowd are going to be, chanting around no matter what, and you come here where feels like you need things to happen for the crowd to get behind you. It's a completely different dynamic to how maybe you'd want to take it on the pitch, isn't it? But we shall see. One more question, shall we, from Stuart Warburton. Is it worth going 2 up front and go for goals as we're short in midfield? And this ties into what Norwich do against Preston on Saturday, Pad. What do you expect? Because I think Greg Downs on the PinkUn Show, little plug, on Wednesday night also said Jerome and Nelson up top together, please.
Well, you can ask for it. You're not going to get it. Not unless they're deep into a game and it dictates, as it was at the end on Tuesday at Forest. No, it'll be probably Oliveira, I'd imagine, will start. I mean, that's really a debate that's kind of redundant. Farke doesn't play 2 up front. He's not going to start now, is he? Unless he plays it in the 3-5-2 formation. But
he's struggling to play
midfielders
3 as well. He's struggling. I mean, I was thinking he could go 3 at the back, but he's going to struggle for centre back. So arguably, isn't he, if he does that as well? So,
I mean, albeit they didn't score midweek, but I thought the inclusion of Marley Watkins left Oliveira less isolated. You wouldn't say that was an out-and-out 2 in a 4-4-2 scenario by any stretch, but there was far more of a threat in behind, because Watkins gives you that with his pace. Linked up with Wes quite well, I thought, on 1 or 2 occasions. So that's almost a halfway house, but you're never going to bridge from where they are at the minute to 4-4-2 and Jerome and Oliveira. And I'm not sure, unless somebody wants to put me straight, I don't think whenever those two have been paired in tandem, I know different management, funnily enough. Alex Neil, Wigan last season, that didn't work away. The two of their games don't, for me, complement each other. So the mere fact that you've got 2 strikers on the pitch, I don't think translates into here come the goals, boys.
Indeed. Finally, I mean, what do you? As you said, Alec Neil said some nice stuff about his return. I personally think he'll probably get a pretty good reception.
Yeah,
we should do for the work he did. Are we going to see something that's kind of similar to what we kind of got from them last year? Do you think? Sort of, are they going to sit back a bit, or do you expect them to press, get in Norwich's faces when he looks at the scouting reports of what Norwich don't like?
Yeah, well, you'd have to say he would go that route. Yeah, I think. For me, I wouldn't look at any other tape other than Barnsley. Barnsley were excellent because they did both. You know, they were solid and resolute without the ball, but they were also quite proactive and did play high at times and did put pressure on Norwich's midfield. And once the ball was turned over, Tom Tribal was proven to be again limited without the ball. And when you've not got Tetty there, it just leaves you back three, as it was second half when they scored, vulnerable. So yeah, you stick on the tape of Barnsley and you try and carry out a similar sort of game plan, I think.
Yep. Do you want to give us any predictions? Do you want to leave us on the note of? He says,
not really give it a second thought. No, I've not given it a second thought. I mean,
what would you like to see?
I think it's probably going to. Well, I know what I'd like to see, but I think it's probably draw territory again. Given the bulletin we've had today in terms of the injury situation, and as we said, to go right back to the start, Alex Neil will have them fired up big style. So and they come off the back of a very decent away win at Bristol, so they won't be fearful of coming to Carrow Road, where Norwich haven't won for 6 games and counting. So yeah, draw all day long, I think.
Well, Pete Layton, the second mention for him today, I think he suggested it was 11 games is the longest league wins run at home, he says. I haven't checked that, but so we've got a long way shy of that, so that's good news. Cheers, Pad. Thank you very much. Thanks for all your comments and questions and for watching. We of course appreciate it. As I said, you can see what Daniel Farker and Christoph Zimmermann had to say on the PinkUn YouTube channel, and we'll be all over Carrow Road tomorrow, before, during and after tomorrow's game. Just keep your eyes on pinkun.com to follow all of our build-up and analysis. Until then, we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.